Hello, everyone. I see some people waiting in the chat already. We appreciate that. It's me, Ash Vandelay, here with J Puns. Jesse, how are we doing today on this? What day is it? It's Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday. At least I hope it's Wednesday because I'm going by my Wednesday schedule. So if it's not, then I have a lot of people to email today. Um, I'm good. I'm tired this week, girl. I don't know if it's just me or if it's something in the air, but I feel like we are hitting that like end of the season stretch where like I'm just trying to power through.
I don't know. The Yankees are 2-0 in their series right now. Go Yankees! Everyone, get all your Yankee hate out now, everyone. Just get it in, all right? Before we make it to the World Series, and then we'll choke there. But just come on, Chet. Just get it all in, and then we'll deal with it when we hit the World Series. Fingers crossed. I don't know if I want the Mets or the Dodgers to play against, but regardless, either way, no, I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, there's the end of the race season ish feeling because like IMSA had their final race this weekend at Petit Le Mans. NASCAR is running now. We're at the round of 8, shortly to be the round of 4. Then we'll be at Phoenix, and then November's here and there, done and dusted. Just like, yeah, it's kind of just winding down to the very quiet, quote unquote. I say off season because there's no really off season in NASCAR, but it's
And then we
getting a little
blink
sleepy.
and we're back to Daytona. Like
I
that's
know.
always how it works.
I know. I think that's wild. Yeah, IMSA might even have ended right this past weekend, but very quickly they have testing and then they go to their Daytona 24. And then we very quickly have to turn around and go to the Clash. It's just like a there's really no off season. I know during the holidays, quite a few folks like save
I'm
their
gonna
PTO
apologize
last.
ahead of time, Ash, because you and I were chatting just fine a moment ago and everything was fine and dandy. And now I feel like I'm struggling to a little bit. So it may be me, apologize, chat. We'll figure this out as we go. But you're doing great, Ash. You're doing great, sweetie.
Thank you so much. I can also just keep yelling my Larry David yell. It's not like a real yell, it's like my Seinfeld, just, "What's the big idea?" But, we have some Red Sox fans in the chat, that's fine, I don't see you in the postseason. Keep living your best lives in the ch in Boston or the Northeast. Um, Ray's excited for Homestead. That's great. So am I. I think I'll be attending the Homestead race. I started making friendship bracelets. I met a individual who made bracelets, for the Charlotte Roval race, and they were really cool, and she was just talking to me about her story. And I was just like, "Yeah, I wanna make bracelets so, like, she has someone to tread with in future races," and it's like a fun fan interaction to just be like, "Hey, like, I'm a new NASCAR fan, a little arts and crafts," and it's really, really fun. But we need to talk about your weekend,
I love
Jesse.
that. I love that idea. Well, yeah, I could talk a little bit about my weekend, and then I'm excited to hear about yours because I know that you actually got to go rovaling this weekend. I was up in Thompson, Connecticut, as I had, talked about a little bit last week. Huge race for the modifieds. Again, I won't continue to lay it out because we do still have one race between now and the finale, the championship. But the points are really close going into Thompson. It's like I said, it's a big weekend there in general. It's the World Series at Thompson. So there's racing all weekend long and everybody kind of shows out. Like you just feel the excitement in the air. I know that I picked Justin Bonsignor as my winner at Thompson, and I will pat myself on the back because he did come out victorious this weekend. I will, though, however, give those Pats a bit of an asterisk, knowing that he's a now 14-time winner there. So, as the record shows,
Not too shabby.
it was a pretty solid pick for me. But that being said, now all three of the championship contenders heading into that race have won at Thompson this year. So it's kind of cool. Like all three of them have gone, conquered one of the most difficult tracks on the schedule. Um, it really just shows that any of them had the talent to be the champion this year. So still two races to go. I think a lot of those points are going to change, especially after the way that Patrick Emmerling ran this weekend. I don't know if he's going to be quite able to keep himself in the points running for the championship here with just two races left, but nonetheless, still incredibly exciting. And despite the fact that there was some rain at Thompson this weekend, We got it in. We moved the race up by 2 hours, and we powered through, and we got the whole thing in, and ended up being, just the perfect day of racing up in Connecticut. So I had a great time. I loved it, and I'm sad that the modified season's winding down, but, very excited to see these next, 2 races at North Wilkesboro and then Martinsville.
Alexander from the YouTube chat is asking, "Can Silk bounce back at North Wilkesboro?" What are your predictions?
So that's a great question because I think there's a giant asterisk on North Wilkesboro because we're going into a place where we've only raced once and there's a repave. There's been a repave. So with this reschedule, it really I don't want to say messes with, it throws kind of a different challenge in the end of the modified series season because for a long time, everybody's been looking at Thompson as I mentioned before, kind of whoever can come out on top is Thompson. Usually there's not enough ground they can make up at Martinsville to make up for that. Thompson a lot of times will be the championship decider of a race, but with such so many unknowns surrounding the race this Sunday at North Wilkesboro, I think that anything is possible, really. I don't want to throw out what if scenarios and be, negative Nancy over here, but you're going to have drivers in the field that have never raced there. Like I said, there's challenges that come with a repave. Um, there's also great things that come with a repave. So, like I said, not trying to be negative, but there is just a lot of room for error this weekend at North Wilkesboro that I wouldn't count anybody out of the points running there. Any of those contenders, I should say.
So far, Jessie's never been wrong with her predictions, so everyone should take what she says as gospel. And that's my advice
Okay,
to
well,
everyone.
calm down. Everybody calm down.
Someone comes back next week and they're like, alright. Are you going to the next 2 races for modifieds?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, I will be at North Wilkesboro on Sunday and then Martinsville for 2 consecutive weekends. And Ash, I'm so excited. We'll probably wait till next week to talk about it, but with IMSA coming to Martinsville for the first time, Mazda MX-5 Cup running on an oval for the first time, a lot of cool stuff going on that night. 2 weeks from now, Saturday night in Martinsville. So next week we'll talk all about it because I want to pick your brain on what to really like look for. In this IMSA race because I'm very much still learning. So
Gosh, I love the MX-5. I love the MX-5 Cup a lot, just like I love the Toyota GR Cup, but I really can't wait for the MX-5s at Martinsville. I think it's gonna be, a fun introduction to this kind of single make series of racing that, some folks may or may not be familiar with, and, hopefully they follow them all along next year because the racing is always good. So usually folks who wanna prove to other teams that they can move up in the classes, move up to maybe GT4s, GT3s in the IMSA series, and yeah, it's always there's battles up and down the grid, which is why I love it so much.
yeah, I
Another
got to
question
see them
for
practice a little bit at Martinsville, and even just the sound of the field was really fun. Hearing they sound like a group of
Yeah.
hornets going by. So I was like, it was very new to me. It was really cool. So if you get a chance to come out, note that like yeah, you're gonna need to hear some very interesting race cars compared to the modifieds, I should say. Like you're gonna hear the pack of hornets fly by, and then you'll hear the ground pounders, the thundering modifieds. So it's gonna be quite the unique night of racing.
That's so funny you say that. It does sound like a group of mosquitoes just descending upon the track, buzzing in circles and whatnot, so, that is really funny. Question
It
from the
does.
YouTube and, Alexander asking, "Jesse, can you watch the Cars Tour race at Wilkesboro, or are you there on Sunday only for the mods?"
I am there only on Sunday for the mods. I didn't even think about the Cars Tour race. I'm around, so like that's a great. I'm glad you put that on my radar. I hadn't even thought about it. Maybe I'll come stop by. I love Cars Tour. Those races are awesome. Talk about a series that you get to watch a lot of different talent and stuff come up and really prove themselves, and some of the names that you see come out of there end up being some bigger stars. So yeah, I'm excited. I'll definitely go check that out. So maybe.
I will be remaining here in Charlotte to do all the watch alongs for all the racing happening in the United States this weekend. So I'm excited to watch Vegas. I'm excited to watch everything that's happening in Austin. Thou shall not be named, the other series, but there's a lot of racing happening this week in the United States, and gosh, I have to remember that I'm in a bubble, we're in a bubble of motorsports fans, so we're just like, "Yes, I'm familiar with all this racing, I know everything that's going on." It looks like racing is, like, taking a huge W in the United States, and then I start watching the playoff games for the World Series, and then I have to remember that, like, no one everyone's really invested in other stick and ball sports, and that motorsports is still has long ways to go, but there's so much room for growth, and it seems positive in my little fantasy motorsports bubble, but, I'm excited for, yeah, continuation, people getting more excited. The IMSA grid was packed this weekend at Petit Le Mans for the, grid walk, so, it's only good things, I can hope.
Well, and I know you this weekend were in Charlotte. So, like I said, you were rovaling yourself. Well, you yourself weren't rovaling, I guess,
The
but you
family
were
dream, yeah.
watching the rovaling happen. How was your Charlotte weekend?
It was really okay, so we started off strong we went to the Holler Parade, it was really cool. So, NASCAR slash, our producer Rachel got in touch with Hendrick Motorsport, and they allowed us to ride in the number 9 hauler, for the Holler Parade. And at first I was like, "Okay, this is like, maybe only I will find this interesting and kind of enjoy the behind the scenes." But, everyone's lined up, grouped by teams, all the hauler drivers, like, know each other, obviously, they're all, like, a really close-knit family, and you just know, like, regardless of what team you're on, they always have each other's backs, and they're just, like, just talking to me about behind the scenes stuff. They got a tandem to Vegas because it's a gosh, was it a 30+ hour drive, I think, straight shot? And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Um so it's just interesting to find out all the logistics because, right, I think motorsport's a team sport. You and I like to talk about that. And if it wasn't for them hauling, driving, being away from their families for so long, multiple days on the road, we would not have the equipment to race during the race weekend. So it was good to see the behind the scenes. Got staged at the drag strip near Charlotte Motor Speedway, which is owned by the same thing. And yeah, did the parade around, which was cool. Through the campsites, people were lined up. I didn't realize how many people make it out for these hauler parades. Um, so everyone cheering for, whether they're Hendrick fans, cheering for the Hendrick, haulers that are all lined up because they're grouped by team and then they're grouped by points. So that's the way they park as well once they get into the infield. So it was cool to see all the funds. The hauler drivers have merch to give out. So our hauler driver Devin had hats, the number 9 at Napa Valley hats and stuff like that, and Hendrick hats. So that was fun to see being tossed down and people asking for those. I also didn't realize hauler drivers have like a walkout song. Essentially, they get to a certain point at the speedway, and there's, like, a stage, and then they announce the hauler and the driver. Like, the number 9, Hendrick Motorsport, Chase Elliott Hauler, hauler driver Devin picked out a Outcast song, and they drive through, and there's, like, fireworks happening, and people are cheering, and people doing the honk the horn thing, and all the hauler drivers are honking their horn. It's just like a
It's like
whole
a drive-in song. Okay, I love that.
if you like attention,
I love
you
it.
should be a hauler driver. It's my pro. It is so fun because you get to wave, and everyone's so
Well,
excited.
it's so funny too. I love when you mention honking the horns because that's one of like the funniest things to me. And it makes me so sad because I always gonna want to go warn everybody. Cause like you said, so many people come out for this holiday parade. You see like families, and I feel like you see a lot of kids because they get excited to see the big trucks, that get to bring the race cars in, and everybody's like so engaged and up close. And then the one hauler driver thinks he's like getting everyone excited, and the way they honk that horn and you see the kids just like fall over backwards because they weren't expecting, that to happen, and it is so loud, and I just feel like, yeah, I always see it because I feel like we need a warning, like, we need a one holler to come through at the start that's like, "Get ready for the horn honking?" But
Even
truly,
inside the
I love the holler parade, and I'm actually so glad I knew a lot of people went, but I'm glad that, like, to hear that they really highlight each driver, and they make them individually feel special. That makes me really happy.
someone asked for pictures with our hauler driver to, like, have the hauler and the driver in the picture, when once we reach the infield. I thought that was really cute. There also was I will have to shout out this small child. So don't forget, right, if you're in a cab, you're many feet off the ground comparatively. So a small child you barely see at the window, but we see a kid, like, waving. So I'm like, "Oh, he's just waving to all the hauler drivers." Kid gets up to the window. He's, like, running alongside the hauler, and all I hear in a tiny little voice is Chase Elliott sucks. I was like Okay, we'll let him know. I just thought that was so funny. It's just like, good for you, like, you're right to express your opinion, but me and the hauler driver, we will tell
That's
Chase
so
Elliott
funny.
personally that you were screaming that on his hauler. I thought
That's
that was so funny.
hilarious.
It's just this little kid, little voice just doing it,
That is
uh,
so good. I love
so
that. The fact that he made a point too, he was like, "I gotta go make sure they know. I gotta make sure that they know that I think that Chase Elliott sucks." I love that. I love race fans.
Yeah, I love race fans. They were out in full force, parked, did the whole thing. Another thing is that they have X number of time to set up. I think this is like an OSHA thing, slash safety thing. They unpack the quote unquote heavy stuff, and I'm sure there's like a weight associated with what heavy is. So they make sure the EMTs are there, but of course the EMTs leave at a certain point because they got to go home. So you gotta make sure you unpack all the heavy stuff while the EMTs are there, and then you can go arrange as you need to, um, for the rest of the evening. A lot of the hauler drivers, some will just stay in the hauler even though they're from the area because just to be out the next morning preparing for the race weekend and stuff. Others will go home and just be like, "Yeah, I'll be back in the morning," and maybe stay for Saturday to Sunday, but from Friday to Saturday, it was mixed. Um just be closer to the track and be there when the garage is open. But, no, the hauler parade was so fun. I would do that again if someone would let me sit in the hauler. I think it's so cool. Everyone's waving, having a good time.
You feel like you're the, beauty like, the beauty queen. You know what I'm trying to say? Miss America. Like, like how, like, they always get to ride in the back seat of the, convertible at the parade? It's like the NASCAR equivalent of that. You're just riding in the big old hauler, but it's the same thing. You still look like Miss America. I love that.
Everyone's just happy that you're there, right? That the haulers are coming in and then the race is about to start on the weekend, so that was a fun interaction. And, something I didn't know about Charlotte Motor Speedway is there's a Bojangles in the infield, which is
Yes,
what
ma'am,
what
there
a what a
is.
what a North Carolina thing to have.
Bojangles and pizza. If you're hungry in Charlotte, that's what you got in the infield. Take your pick.
It's
You're
a
like,
Hungry
"It's
Howie's
90
and
degrees,
Bojangles.
I'm sweating my butt off, and I'm a little hungry." Hungry Howies, they gotcha.
Chicken biscuit, right up. No problem. I was like, "This is the most
Mhm.
Charlotte Motor Speedway I've ever seen in my entire
Yep.
life, this thing." So vibes good. Gosh, I like Charlotte Motor Speedway. I like the Roval. Everyone can at me on Twitter or something about it. I know people complain about it all the time. I had a great time. As a fan, Roval slept. If you go there as an experience, that was awesome. I'm sure the Coke 600 is also awesome, but the Roval is also
Roval
just
really is so great. And I think, like, you make a really good point about, as a fan, because, like, if you look at the Charlotte races, it really depends on, what kind of race fan you are. I think the Roval is a great experience to bring different people to, and like, if you're, I say in the Charlotte area, where I should specify that. Like, if you're a local and you're interested in checking out racing, the Roval is a little more digestible. I feel for people that are not super in depth race fans because you can kind of see the cars up close as far as the way the course goes, and it's just like it's so unique that it's really fun for people to come experience. Because on the flip side, the Coca-Cola 600 is the longest race of the year. So if you're a race fan, you know the prestige and how exciting and how much that race carries. If you're not a race fan, that's like 6 hours of watching cars go in circles that you have no idea what's going on. So, that's what's so beautiful about the, difference in having those 2 races at Charlotte is that, like, race fans of all different kinds are able to come experience that track and find something, interesting and exciting about each event.
yeah, and of course, NASCAR access and just able to go to the hauler, go to the fan area, I should say, and they see the activations, get your driver's autographs, see them talk, get questions, Q&A stuff. It's just, always appreciate that for a lot of race series. Like IMSA also does a great job at Petit Le Mans getting driver autograph sessions and fan engagement. It's just something that can't be beat.
Do you have, maybe, like, a favorite moment from the weekend that you wanna share? Anything anything fun happen?
Um, what was ooh? I mean, nothing can beat and I say the same thing about Phoenix, when there was, like, a little area by the media center that if you had the credentials, like, you're allowed to go it's right off the exit of pit lane, um, so you're allowed to stand right by, like there's, like, the fence, obviously. We were safe, it wasn't exposed. Make that very clear before NASCAR lawyers start emailing me, um, and you just, like as soon as the, flag turned green and the cars were just ripping through that corner and, like, you just even with my ear protection, like, you just feel the rumble, and I'm sure someone's gonna be like, "Back in the day, it was louder," but it's fine. I was fine the way it was. The views were immaculate. I was right there. That's always my favorite feeling, especially at in Phoenix when they do the I call it buzz in the tower, when they fly by and you get, like, the wind afterwards, and it's just a whole that whole exp just getting someone to a NASCAR race, I think, is substantially will sell them on being fans for a very, very long time because it's just the experience, the sound, the just the everything is just so cool, especially that first green flag run when they're all on the same lap and just buzzing by you. Um, freak, I love it.
No, I say the exact same thing about bringing people to a race because I'm like, if they're not sold once they see the flyby and the start, just set them up in the pits for, a live pit stop, and then they'll really they're sold then. Like, it's just I don't know how you can come to a race and experience it and not walk away with some sort of interest or at least an appreciation for it.
Yeah. It was also part of the drivers meeting for the Cup Series, but I will, talk about that when we get to the Cup day. Um, I was I didn't know what the drivers meeting was because I have different experience at drivers meeting from open wheel, from, like, F1, from GT World Challenge America, from sports car racing, so seeing how they all just differ in information was interesting. Um, so, of course, we had the Xfinity race on a Saturday, SVG on pole, classic SVG moves, which no one doubted, which we talked about, the show before. Um, and yeah, the new configuration did its job very easily. Jesse loved doing that, slight dive bomb on Creed. We had a lot of incidents going through and through. But then we had our first, how do I say this politely? Our first our controversy, I'm just gonna say it, of the weekend with Parker Kligerman and the yellow flag slash the timing of it all. So for those who are unfamiliar, Honeyman got buried deep in the tire barrier, and Parker was about to take the white flag till the yellow came out, and folks watching, even the broadcasting team, at first thought Parker got the white flag before the yellow came out, therefore winning the race, and I think Parker did as well. He thought he won the race. But it turns out they through different camera angles, they waved the yellow flag, like, couple feet before he crossed that finish line, so, um, that was I tweeted a lot of things, some strong language.
Well, I think, let's just start with the heartbreak for Parker. That's it's heartbreaking just for anybody at all in any scenario to be that close, and even like you said, to have that like moment of relief and excitement that you think that you've just done this huge accomplishment, and then to find out that it's a gut punch that you're still competing. And then on top of that, for Parker, this is his final season, racing full time. He announced that a couple weeks ago. He's just such a class act. I mean, you heard him in his post race interview, the way that he responded to the entire scenario. He really, in everything, every interview he's made since, he's taken it so well, and it is tough to see. Happy for Mayer. This isn't any sort of slight to Mayer, but this is his third win this season. It would have been really, really exciting to see Parker get that first one, and go out with that win and
Yeah.
continue a playoff run.
Yeah, Parker/Mayer Parker and Mayer both needed to win to move on, and, so everyone a lot of big fans of Parker. Parker does a really good job of helping folks on different tracks, hoping to get the help when he needs it. Great person, was also a friend of the stream. We always see him sign off this Twitch stream and others as every single race week after we're done with the show. And he gave such a, and I know some folks in the YouTube chat are saying that he couldn't say what he wanted to say during his post race interview because blah, blah, blah. And I don't think that stopped NASCAR drivers before. So Parker just took it in stride. Man, he did such a classy interview. I would have not been as classy, um, which is probably why I don't compete at those highest levels of things. But he did a great job in the post race interview. Was really gracious about it, and yeah, I just there was no doubt that they just could. Ken Harvick said the same thing. Should have just thrown it earlier. Had about 15 to 20 seconds to do so. So interesting, comment from the YouTube chat. The fact that NASCAR, took long to decide the yellow, might have show that they might have filters to take a decision. The comment I believe was that they didn't see it from their was it they didn't see it from their tower? They didn't see it from where they were throwing the yellow and stuff like that, so, um, we all saw it on TV. They don't watch the broadcast. That's a very important thing to denote, but it just yeah. Parker thought he won. And they had to take that away, and then during overtime, Sam Mayer took that win. That one guy says, "Honestly, that interview was all that you need to know about Parker. Dude is a fantastic guy." Yeah, which chat agrees. Yeah, just seeing the chat roll in here. Yeah, very, yeah, hopefully we can have Parker on the show soon. He's bound to make his return. We had him on last year, was extremely awesome. And then we have, and then we hopefully have him for this year. He did a great interview with Sharon Spink yesterday morning. So if you are on the YouTube slash want to go to the NASCAR YouTube, you can see that as Sharon interviews him as well. So we do have Steve Reed asking, interesting enough, um, about do you think NASCAR is ready for female drivers? I feel the popularity of Deegan shows fans love Deegan and want that rivalry that is missing now. Deegan and Danica face the same problems. Yes, I think NASCAR, I think motorsports is just ready for female drivers. We've had female drivers, should not be separated. Car doesn't care if you're a man or a woman. If you drive well, if you drive consistently, if you drive clean, you should be able to drive a race car. Oh, money is the biggest factor. Let's be honest. Um, so
Money is a huge factor, and I apologize, Ash, if I stepped on you at all because I'm having issues here with my stream. But with you guys talking about female drivers, look at somebody like you mentioned how Haley Deegan had, shown that there is a place for female drivers in this sport when it came to the response to her in a lot of ways. And I think that that's huge. The money side of things. Look at the sponsorship side of things. People like Tony Breidinger, like the way that she's able to go out there and gained the attention of sponsors and businesses. And then the whole other facet of gaining the attention of new sports fans, new race fans. Um, I think it's huge. There's not only a space for female drivers, but I think a need for more females that can come through and like show that there's that space for female drivers because racing is at least NASCAR is in two parts. It's on track performance and then it's sponsorship, baby, and what you do off the racetrack. And so that is where some of those female drivers are really, really showing that they're out there hustling and able to kind of bring new faces, new companies, new everything to the sport.
yeah, and we already have so many women in the mix. I mean, in sports car racing, um, and that is also no surprise about the money aspect. That's why there's such thing in the history of sports car racing of gentlemen drivers, not even sports car racing, just every kinds of racing, gentlemen drivers. NHRA, National Hot Rod Association, does a great job of. I mean, again, as long as you can race, bring that money. Absolutely, absolutely no reason to to not have someone drive in. She is going. I mean, one of the news we were going to talk about is she will be in Indy next in 2025, which is the IndyCar feeder series. So going open wheel becomes the fifth confirmed driver for HMD Motorsports, and she's going to join Kyle Collette, Josh Pearson, Tommy Smith, and Bryce Aaron. For that, so it'd be really cool to see her in Indy next and try a little bit of open wheel and get her hand on it, get that experience. She's been testing already, so that's pretty cool. Brings a slew of sponsors, like you said, to the IndyCar scene. Only thing that matters is the money, says Ray. Yeah, that's just the name of the game in motorsports, and that can go anywhere from. I mean, we say sim racing makes it more accessible, but sim racing is also expensive, right? If you think about it, people want to buy rigs and get direct drive wheels, and some want motion rigs, and it's the whole, some sim racing has subscriptions. And you buy the car and you buy the tracks. It's a whole thing. And, like, it's all expensive in motorsports, and you try your best with what you can. So
I also think
I also
it's
think
not
it's not
necessarily fair to say
necessarily
that money's the only thing that matters, you know? Sure, like, we're all sitting here like that's a bit of an extreme, but
fair.
it's worth noting, like, you can have all the money in the world, but you gotta be able to perform on the racetrack as well. Like, there's a sweet spot there, you know? So yeah,
Well, if I'm
it's
rich enough to buy
important,
a
but
team and
that's
put
not to
myself in
slight
a seat,
any of the talent.
then then I'm gonna give her. Yeah, but no,
But if you
Jesse's
can't
100%
perform, you gotta keep that charter, you know? I mean, there's a little bit of that there.
right. You're like, "You can't just do that." And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's a good point." I just keep buying charters, and hopefully I just make enough where I can keep it and don't have to go into, so, we do wanna get into the, Cup Series race as well. Brendan in the YouTube chat making a good point. As a Logano fan, it's been a roller coaster of a season, and he had a roller coaster of a race weekend. SVG was on pole again for the Cup race. Reddick won stage 1. And then, I mean, let's just go straight to the Logano thing. At first, after the race end, Logano was out of the playoffs, and I think he had time to, like, accept his fate in the car once the passes were made on track right before the end. The checker flag flew because his post race interview seemed very, I don't know. He just didn't seem as disappointed as I thought he would be, or, like, upset. He was definitely like, "Hey, this was rough, and we should have done better." But, it seemed he had time to accept his fate. And then drama as I went home. Bowman disqualified for not meeting minimum weight, so then puts Logano back in to the playoffs. That one guy says, as a fan of both Bowman and Parker, this weekend was brutal. Oh man, I'm so sorry. All Parker fans. Um, and then for a couple, like an hour or two, Logano fans definitely had a little bit of heart attacks. The cool thing was,
I think, you know, when you look at the Logano Bowman situation, though, in general, and just taking it back to what you mentioned about a
Mhm.
little bit of accepting his fate, I mean, we've talked about it before. An elimination isn't a one race thing. I mean, it's a three race round, right? It's just like how making or not making the playoffs isn't a comes down to the season finale race. Like every driver takes accountability that there's a whole entire regular season worth of races that matter that got you to that point or didn't get you to that point. So I think for Logano, it was a little bit of noting that like and he understands and he is a veteran and he gets the ins and outs of this playoff of realm. Um, and he knew it wasn't just a matter of what happened on Sunday. But I also say that to say that's where when you look, and I don't know if this is super fair because I would have
Mm.
to go back truly and look at Bowman a little more in depth. But Logano, and as far as his wins goes, he's been very good on a lot of diverse racetracks as far as he's been able to kind of at least find some consistency on road courses on super speedways or on drafting tracks and on intermediate tracks. So I think that that is where if you want to try to argue who should advance or really who got slighted there, I think what's ultimately going to help Logano and what has helped Logano in the long run is his ability to find at least some level of success on a variety of racetracks.
There was a lot of talk on the internet about there's always how do I say how do I say this? Do you remember when everyone's like, "Oh, Bowman doesn't have a seat for some reason, even though his contract extends just well." We're to the point where we talked about this, where he had to call and be like, "Hey, am I all set for next year?" Like he even doubted himself. And then Bob Pockers had to be like, "Yeah, I asked him directly. He was fine. He has a seat for next year." People are saying that Bowman doesn't deserve the seat that he's in, blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, oh, Bowman's going to let them down. And little did you know, the team let him down and they got him disqualified because of not reaching minimum weight. Bowman did exactly what he had to do for the race on Sunday. And all of y'all doubted him on the Reddit. on Twitter. I read, I see what you're saying, and little did you know that that team would let him down as opposed to the other way around, and he did not meet minimum weight. To get a little bit more specific, according to Cup Series managing director Brad Moran, he made a video on social media, which you can watch, and he explains how the process post-race inspection worked. They're allowed a half percent, essentially, percent error in weight, which is 17 pounds, and they were more than that. They gave him a chance to run the pumps and make sure all the pickup boxes were full, ran the water through the system, rescaled it, did it again, um, and still didn't make minimum weight, and they didn't appeal it. They Jeff Gordon said that it was on us, and he's pretty embarrassed by it. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you pointed that out because 17 pounds. I mean, I know we're talking a very heavy race car here, but at the same time, I mean, the penalty is a penalty, right? I mean, they're like you said, NASCAR gave them the opportunity to prove that this wasn't worth giving out that penalty, but at the end of the day, 17 pounds is a very large amount of weight, and like you said, it was enough to dish that out, and it is so unfortunate for Bowman, but this is just another example of how it's such a team sport, pit road excuse me, pit road, we talk about it all the time, can make or break, the race just as a driver. Mistakes on the racetrack can make or break a race or make or break a season, and it is really heartbreaking and really unfortunate for Alex Bowman, but, to your point about a lot of the questions, he's done a lot to really, I think, prove himself this year, so we gotta give him credit for that just because this worked out the way that it did. It doesn't, has nothing to do with what Alex Bowman has been able to show that he can do, with Hendrick this year,
that
especially
one
with all
guy
the
from Twitch,
doubters.
yeah, all the doubters. He was saying if it wasn't for the humongous one at Dega, both Bowman and Logano would have probably skirted through. And like, yeah, that's the name of the man's had no beef with everything and got flipped on his head. He's just been quiet running his races and got 17 pounds. So Bowman got
Mhm.
disqualified even though he was nicely through to the round of 8. But now because he's disqualified, Logano is back in. And it's funny, I was reading something, I think it was on J Ski's website. Logano was being quoted. He's like, yeah, by the time I left the track and was driving home with my wife, he's like, we were talking about we were talking about other things. Like we were just having a different conversation when I got the call, and like just it was completely off my mind by that point, and he's like, "Oh, now I'm back in." So, changing that mindset.
"Honey, I gotta get back to work. Things are serious again," you know? No, I'm kidding. Obviously, the teams take the end of the season very seriously, whether they're in the playoffs or not, but, um, it is really interesting. I don't know if you saw online I don't wanna call it, what do I call this? Theory? Kind of like it's not a conspiracy theory, but the fun,
Okay, makes you feel
um, uh, pattern is the word I'm looking for, of Joey Logano in the years of the championship and winning, and it's just so funny how I don't wanna butcher it, so have you seen this pattern about
is it the even years thing?
yes, mhm. The even years of winning championships, and everybody was saying, like, would he keep it alive? And then with this being an even year, and then the way that happened, it was just silly to see all the responses on social media, like, "The pattern, it continues," whatever. It was funny. One of those silly, weird NASCAR things, but it's fun to follow.
Yeah, 22 even years. You gotta look out. He is though 11 below the cut line. We can give you your next because the round of 8 obviously is next 3 races, and we're headed to Vegas this weekend, which we'll preview in a moment. But I guess we'll start from the top instead of the bottom. Kyle Larson, comfortable in plus 33. Christopher Bell plus 13, Tyler Reddick plus 10, William Byron plus 4, and then below the cutoff, Ryan Blaney minus 4, Hamlin minus 8, Elliott minus 9, and Logano minus 11. So we do have a question. We do have the next 3 races, of course, to then have your final round. You have final round of 4. By final round of 4, I mean you have the final 4 that race in one race in Phoenix to determine the champion. But Thomas, oh, excuse me, James in the Twitch chat had a really great question. Let me find it. Do you ladies think the Final Four should actually have a three-race championship series as opposed to that one in Phoenix? And, Jesse, I'll let you take that one first.
Thanks, Ash. Appreciate you, throwing that one up for me
Let me
to
give
answer
you that
first.
one.
Uh, no, that's a great yeah, you're like, "Jess?" No, I'm just kidding. I that's a I mean, I don't hate that idea. If I'm being honest, I don't hate the idea because I think that it just plays into what we keep saying about how there's gotta be kind of like multiple race cushion here for drivers to argue that they were able to perform to their full ability in the rounds. And I think that there would, by doing so, by adding two more races to that championship, I think it would silence a lot of the haters that feel that this playoff format doesn't adequately crown the best driver, the most talented driver of the season, best driver of the year, as champion. There's room for that to not be the case. But on the flip side, I like this playoff format. I think it's everything we just kept saying. You've got this long regular season to work it out and figure out if you're going to make it. Then the rounds, you got shorter time to figure out if you can, compete and get yourself there. And then at the end of the day, sure, there's a lot that can happen in Phoenix and sometimes it doesn't work out in your favor, but it just continues to shorten the room for error that you have to win the championship. So I see the point in the way that they have it structured now, and I personally enjoy it. However, I do see the merit in feeling as though a three-round championship would maybe bring mm, more consistent championship crownings to who people feel is the best driver of the season. Does that make sense?
Yes. This is a hard question to answer. Just right, motorsports, not like any other not like any other sport, right? Like, you we can't do sorry, just because I'm wearing a Yankees hat, we can't do a playoff round of 7, or when we get to the World Series out of a round of 7, like, which and then if we did something like that, which tracks are we picking? You would have to do a round of, mm, you want one of each kind of track. So you want the 1.5s, the short, the road courses, and the drafting tracks. Like, if you're gonna present a championship that way, if you have more than one round, they better be consistent or dang good at every single track that NASCAR has to show that they are the best in the series that we're in with the courses that we have. And that's where it's just like, that gets a little weird. Ben on the Twitch chat says, counter offer, have a normal point structure. Um, just run the same race 3 times. No, it can't be doing that, Ray. So the way the format is currently established and currently the way it is outlined, I think one and done in Phoenix makes sense. Um, so a round of 3 could be possible, but then you wouldn't be including all tracks. You'd have to do a round of 4, but what if there can't be a tie because there's 4 different drivers? What do you do, like a one-lap shootout? No, that wouldn't make sense. What do you do, a qualifying shootout? No, that wouldn't make sense either. Yeah, the way it's currently structured, and we have to be in the confines of the current system, a one and done makes sense. So,
Mhm.
just see the smoke coming out of my ears. Ben's point, just have the regular season run all the way through, then call it the end. So, uh, here we are. So no, I don't think the final 4 should be in a 3 series, 3 race capacity
I
run.
mean, it just goes back to the same conversation that you and I touch on every week about how you're never going to be able to please everybody, especially NASCAR fans. And and I'm not to pick on Ben at all, but with his point about having a normal point structure, it's like, well, okay, but when we had a different point structure, and I don't know what your point of normal is, so like this isn't, he may not be referencing this, but it's like when we did have, more of a like the chase, everybody complained about Jimmy winning 7 championships, and it was like, "Okay, we're getting tired, we need more parity in the sport." And then we set up this playoff structure that presents an opportunity for more parity, And people are like, actually, we liked it again back when how it was before. So you know how it is. You're just never going to please everybody. But I'm always open for, kind of the discussion around the what ifs, and I like hearing from different race fans as far as what they do and don't like about that structure, because it is a very unique one, shall we say. So there's a lot of room for conversation about it. I think it's good.
By the way, myself, Jess's, our producer Rachel's, and our secondary producer Nick, all of our Final Four predictors are still in. So it really comes down to this last round of 8 to see who's going to make it in or not. Again, I had Blaney, Elliott, Hamlin, Larson, and Jess had Larson, Willie B, Bell, and Blaney, and those are all still in, even though we're at some are below the cut line. But anything can happen between Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville, which is Martinsville's gonna be interesting for me. Um, should we kind of move this conversation to San Diego? Because I think it kind of encompasses it both ways when we talk about the comments that I saw about not
Sure.
making anyone happy. So, according to San Diego Union Tribune,
Yeah.
as reported by Adam Stern, NASCAR is said to be intrigued by a street course that would have San Diego as a backdrop. But the point of the article was to mention that it's just preliminary investigating. I'm trying to figure out like what the cities would need, the counties would need from NASCAR to make this happen. What would the course even be? How many people? How do we do this kind of race in the Southern California area? So this is a very let's just take a peek in Southern California and check it out. Um, and I was more annoyed by the comments of the tweet. Um, just I wish more people would before you typed anything online to take a second before before you do. Um,
So, do you feel like, at least I feel like, we grew up in that era where our parents were like, everything that you put online lives there forever. And they were always like, whether it's a picture or just anything that you ever think about putting out into the universe, like it could come back to haunt you one day. I don't know where we just like stopped doing that in parenting, but yeah, people just don't think. Half the TikToks I see these days, I'm like, that never needed to leave your camera roll. In fact, that never needed to go in your camera roll to begin with, but the fact that I'm watching it now never needed to happen. But that's neither here nor there. Yes, Ash, I could not agree more that people should think about what they're saying before they say it and share these opinions. Um Actually, I was gonna hop up on my soapbox, but I'll let you continue I'll let you start this time, and then I'll give my thoughts.
thank you, Jess. You for letting me start this one. How do I say this? Before NASCAR lawyers are tensing at their keyboards at the moment. I think we say things online and expect 0 consequences, right? Because person to person, if you said things before the internet was a thing, people would be like, that is silly," and more strong language or, you know. So, I am here to add you know what? I'm not gonna say it. So, he once you write something online and I find it, I will let you know what I think about it. Let's just go straight to the comments. So, one is someone said, "We race on too many road and street courses." They said, "Too many, it should only be about 5." Well, I'll let you know that we have including we're gonna include the All-Star race, we're gonna include the Clash in the calendar of the race of 36. I think those should be counted. I don't know why. They do all that stuff. And counting that, it's 16%. It is 6 races. So your 5 is pretty close to the number we already have. If you just Googled it and did the math in your head instead of typing that out. Um, it's 16% of the calendar. 16, 1, 6, and the percentage sign. Do we think that's a lot? I don't.
I don't. I don't think that's a lot at all. In fact, I think it's a little bit of what you touched on earlier, when you were talking about this, potential multi-race format, and you were saying that you were saying you were if I understood you right, you were basically saying that, we would hope that our champion is somebody that could find a way to dominate on, or not dominate, but find a way to conquer all types of racing within NASCAR, all styles, all types of tracks. And I think by adding an emphasis on road course racing in our NASCAR schedule, it just ups the level of performance, the eliteness that this series brings as being the best stock car racers. Um, I also think that by doing so, I mentioned this before, it opens up the door for more drivers of different racing facets to feel comfortable coming over and trying their hand in the NASCAR
Mm,
field. We've seen it more in the last couple years than we've ever seen in the past. Different drivers of all different series all around the world coming. They don't necessarily feel comfortable coming in and just jumping into a car on an oval, much less does a team owner feel comfortable bringing somebody over. But there's a really fun opportunity that so many of these road courses present to bring new talent in and for teams to work with different talent and, different international drivers. Some of the names that we've seen come over and race internationally are
yep.
huge names in other racing series. And I don't know if people understand that maybe aren't quite as well versed in multiple different areas of motorsports. Because I'll be honest, I had to really do my due diligence in learning about a lot of these guys, but it should not be underappreciated or valued excuse me, what these events do to bring in big names and bring in big eyes to what NASCAR's doing over here.
Say that louder for the people in the back. Yes, right, SVG, one of the biggest examples with Australian supercars able to come over here, learning the ovals. Everyone doubted him, was able to, I mean, I think he's learning pretty quickly on the ovals and able to crush those road courses as needed. I mean, we look at, I mean, a couple years ago, right? We had Kimi Räikkönen in the Watkins Glen race, and a lot of eyeballs on that for folks who know him and watched him for Formula One and his experience there. I mean, yeah, it lets people come in and experience Cup and maybe gain a little bit of interest to continue on. And it only is positive. I do like the positivity from the YouTube chat, which I did not expect. James says, I agree with the feeling on not enough road course races. Steve saying, look what happened when NASCAR went road racing in Europe. Huge success. Jacob saying, I think the road courses actually showcase who the best drivers are. Um, yeah, I think the NASCAR calendar, I'm fine with 16%. I mean, if we want to up it to 20% and add one more road race, then that's fine. Like, I think once we start getting into a quarter of the calendar and so on, a third of the calendar, I understand the argument that we're racing on too many and blah 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 ovals and history and 1948 and go back to Daytona Beach. I sure we can have that discussion. Absolutely. At 16%, let alone 20%, 21, 22 till we get to 25. I, I also think San Diego, I wonder if they would rotate it maybe with Chicago or would it would replace Chicago, would it replace something that we already do? We don't know. Like we don't know the specifics to have this discussion. And like where you're saying there's too many road and street courses, we don't know that yet. So, s Faith makes a really fun point, says, "Yes, bring NASCAR to the 619. Living in the area, there's a ton of beaches, we also have a lot of new fans. We can get SoCal such a surfing city, it would be great to have them there." Yeah, Southern California is a large sporting, we're talking about the now business aspect of it. Southern California is a large sporting region of the United States, let alone some would argue, I mean, could be ballsy about this. We'll just say the world. In Southern California alone, which does include Los Angeles. I know that is a 2-hour drive from San Diego, but I know a lot of people who drive and fly to racetracks around across the United States. A lot of people going to Phoenix. So I don't think 2 hours from Los Angeles to San Diego is too big of a ask or surprise that people would do that to see a NASCAR race. Two NBA teams, WNBA team, men's soccer, women's soccer, what do we have? Baseball teams, like Southern California loves its sports. And fun fact, I think NASCAR overlaps more with stick and ball sport fans than it does maybe with other international types of series fans. So it's just there are sports fans there that want to enjoy other kinds of sports and learn about it, and they made a big deal about it. I think it'd be fun.
Well,
Ooh.
And you and I talked about it a little bit earlier too, and it's the same way as we were saying with different drivers wanting to come in. We are always wanting to bring new race fans into the sport, and we keep talking about wanting different demographics of people, younger people. We want like who doesn't want more NASCAR fans, right? But unless we go and do our due diligence to put ourselves in these markets that we see potential to bring in new fans, then we're not doing our jobs either. So I love the idea of going to. I know you mentioned technically, we're close enough to LA that you could argue we've already really hit that market with the Coliseum. However, this is to me a different market. This is
Mm.
another opportunity to go continue to feed a little bit of that LA demographic that did start to find interest in what we're doing, but also bring in more fans in the San Diego area. And also, it's like you said on the business side, look at what we were able to do in Chicago as a sport and the amount of business that Chicago saw in revenue.
Yeah, yeah. The revenue, the increase, the I met a father and a daughter who were like, "Yeah, we just saw this was happening last year, so we showed up and we liked it, so we showed up again." And I was like, "That's awesome." That's
Love
this is
that.
right. It just makes sense if you're able to if it's accessible, then it's right there. I Steve makes a good point in the chat. NASCAR should thrill us by 2 race on dirt with the chase drivers. Yeah, we can talk about adding a dirt race, right? If I'm gonna argue, if my whole shtick is that we should determine who's the best by racing on a variety, excuse me, of tracks, dirt should be included in that. And you know what? You bring up a good point, and I do agree with it. I would love to see, um, you know, I'd love to see a dirt race. Maybe not just with the chase drivers. Guess that would be a little that would just be like an exhibition at that point, but I would like the inclusion of a dirt race back in the road course drafting, short tracks, and 1.5s. What do you think, Jess?
Also, I lost you there for a second, so I apologize if I repeat anything that you have already said out there in point this, but I think we mentioned this last week as well, and Big Ben here in the Twitch chat mentions that he says a dirt race should be on a dirt track, and I agree. I think if we were gonna throw this extra element in there and say, "To be the best NASCAR stock car
Yeah.
racer in the world, you've got to be able to take on all these tracks," then yes, it needs to be at a track that is built to race on. It is a dirt track. It is made for that. I think it's the same way that we wouldn't only put out Chicago and say this is the defining factor of whether or not you're a good, road street course racer. It's like, well, that's not really fair. So I think yeah, we would want to put a standard classic known dirt track on the schedule if we were ever going to do that.
Yeah. That's a good point. If we're gonna keep entertaining street and road courses, equally, we should be entertaining the dirt tracks, and that's Chad brings a good point. We can have I I think fans might enjoy that if we give them that in addition to wanting the road courses as well. Um, there was another argument that NASCAR should only be racing in ovals, but I think we basically answered that's you can't determine who the best is. If we just want to be the best oval racer, then sure. But if you want to be the best stock car racer and such, then no. I also like to denote, man, there's a lot of yapping. We have a lot of thoughts about this chat because this is a conversation that happens across all forms of motorsport. Formula One fans have the same discussion every so often when we talk about adding a street course. When Vegas was coming around last year, folks are like, we should race on proper racetracks. Why are we doing road course? I mean, why are we doing street courses? And n- I would like to establish that racetracks are expensive. Coda took a huge subsidy from the state of Texas to build their racetrack and have to hold multiple events, multiple race series, convince people to get there to make sure they can stay in the green, hopefully break even for the year because they do also have to constantly repave it due to the dirt in Texas and it expanding and all that other stuff. But road courses are expensive. You need to support your local racetracks. Support local, always say that. That includes your racetracks. They're also, unfortunately, they are closing down. People are moving by racetracks because they're cheap land. And then these people are then complaining about the noises. We see these lawsuits happening with Laguna Seca from time to time. Um, so I think there's also a drag strip I think it's in Tennessee that's going through that same exact thing right now. A bunch of homes being built by it. them complaining that it's noisy, want to get it closed down. So yeah, support your local racetracks and not just with NASCAR. If you have the car store coming, if you have modifieds coming to these racetracks, if you have any other series, gosh, if it's Coda, they do a Tuesday night bike night where you can just take your road bike, not a motorcycle, take your little bicycle, go with your friends, enjoy the craft beer trucks and the food trucks that they have and support them that way. If you want racing at these tracks, we have to attend, we have to support them. Otherwise, the people that make the decisions that are above my pay grade are going to do these street races because they're cheap. You don't have to build a racetrack. All the infrastructure is there with the hotels, public transport, if there is any, buses, subways, metro systems, restaurants there. They don't have to worry about feeding people, right? So we need to support our racetracks to the best of our ability, understanding that it's expensive to go, or if you can't go to a race, but there's any events that they hold. Charlotte Motor Speedway holds. I think Dover does this too. When I lived in DC, they have like holiday lights, like they do like a holiday light tunnel thing and do like a little winter festival carnival thing. Go for that too. Show your support for your racetracks. Otherwise, we're going to keep getting street courses because these racetracks are one closing, two don't have money because it sucks.
Bristol does the lights as well, by the way, for anybody in the East Tennessee area. Yes, and I'm sure there's other racetracks too, but I do know that Bristol is one of them. But yeah, amen, Ash. I couldn't have said it better myself, so I'll just let that speak for itself. Yeah, you got to go to your local racetracks, especially your local short tracks.
Yeah, yeah, just go to your like exactly. If you wanna right, and then we're that's a great point, Jesse, because if you wanna develop the talent that then comes into NASCAR and is that starts at your local short tracks. That starts at your karting tracks. I mean, there's a whole system that we have to support, and then people are like, "Oh, why are these racetracks closing?" Well, because it's a lot of money. We talked about being a driver, having money definitely helps, of course, with talent, but you also need the facilities to do so. Um it's a little it's expensive. It's an expensive sport all the way around, whether it's you're the promoter, you're the track, you're the racer, you're the team. And the best way to support is either by attending, if you put your money where your mouth is, just showing up for all of the above in the way. Ben says, I think Pocono has a Christmas tree sale around the holidays. Oh wait, that's sick. Wait, that's actually really cool. Hopefully the proceeds go to the track.
Fun.
Charlotte Motor Speedway. The best part about doing this stream in front of a computer is that I can Google quickly. SRX was supporting hometown tracks. You got to see different tracks, and SRX brought in new fans. Yes. Oh, the World of Outlaws final? Wait, is in Charlotte? Done. Going. I've never been to World of Outlaws. Done. Sold. Next. Yeah, check your event calendar. That's so cool. I didn't know that. Meetings and events.
That is really neat. I didn't know that either.
Guess I'm going. Done. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is so Chad doesn't like at me later on Twitter. Yeah, the World Finals is huge. Oh, I didn't know. Take your headphones, Ash. Yeah, I do have the drag racing ear protection, like red earmuffs. And I'm gonna need that, yeah, for World of Outlaws, absolutely. Older tracks have more character and usually good races. Don't really like the modern tracks. Interesting, Swim. I Hmm. Yeah, I think in some eyeballs, some minds, it's quote unquote cheaper to build a new racetrack to the specs and things that you've learned from the old racetrack than to invest in an older racetrack. I love Sebring, excuse me. It should never be repaved. Or I mean, they have to repave certain sections, but I understand that what makes Sebring is respecting the bumps when you're racing there. The facilities, could use a little bit of an upgrade. But are people investing in it? Like, I don't know what the conversations are up there. Like, are they being like, "Oh, it's good enough for now. Why spend money when people are still showing up and we're making money?" Right? Um, I, uh, yeah, you're gonna have to update some facilities, update the bathrooms, update media centers, if you're gonna want fans to show up. And it's, yeah, I think you bring a good point. It's a catch 22, from the YouTube chat. Yeah, you spend money to make money, but then you don't want to spend more money. I can't solve it. This is what people argue about all the time. Um, so I understand. But if you're wondering why they're going through street courses, it's because tracks are closing down, or two just costs a lot of money, upkeep, management, all that stuff. So if we don't want that anymore, we got to support buy tickets for our non-street courses races. Simple as that. We need an indoor track, ignore the fumes from the cars, it'd be alright. As a non-lawyer, but for NASCAR lawyers, we're not going to do that, and no one race inside, please. Thank you so much. Do not take legal advice from the Twitch, NASCAR, or YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone. Make that very clear. So San
Medical
Diego.
advice, on the other hand. No, just kidding.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. Swim and Climb is asking, what about a Champions
No.
Weekend format? You could use a venue, have a short track race on Friday, road course race on Saturday, big main oval race on Sunday, add all the points equals champ. Yeah,
My
again,
brain is, like, digesting. I'm, like, trying to see the, like, holes. I'm like, "Hang on, hang on." It's
if your
working
car
so
gets
far.
wrecked on the short track Friday, what's gonna happen for your road course on Saturday and the oval race on Sunday?
That's Well, that's the other thing I think too. You're looking at 3 totally different race cars. I mean, they're gonna have to have 3 totally different setups if you're running these different races, like, if they're as different as you're saying. So there is that challenge of how to yeah, I mean, how do teams bring 3 different race
Yeah.
cars and then also bring 3 different backups? It is a little tough there, but I like the thought process. I will say quickly too, I was this weekend at Thompson, and Thompson Thompson Speedway Motorsports Park is the full name of this place, and I could not have I mean, all encompassing. This place is absolutely incredible. And it's got a little bit of everything on the grounds there. There's the longer road course. So it does make me think, obviously that's not where I would put this event, but to his point, it is neat to think about utilizing some of those racetracks for everything that they bring to the table. I like the thinking outside the box there.
So Cuisine Shy goes, "I feel like this feels like a Mr. Beast video." I guess you and I could yap till the cows come home, but I wanna ask chat, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what would you prefer on a calendar? Like, are
Wait,
there
what does
too
he
many
mean by
road
that? Well, that he feels like this is a Mr. Beast video.
how Mr. Beast just, like, does
Inform
all
me,
the
sorry.
No, you're good. He does, like, all these challenges, and it's like, "Oh," you have you ever seen, like, 2 people stuck in a room for a day, and he's like, "Oh, we do this, like, do that, perform here," like, you can have drivers jump through hoops, and then, like, through fire, and
Oh,
then, like, add
okay.
this for extra money, and do this for extra
Got it.
points.
We have all the drivers, like, yeah, are locked in a Walmart for 24 hours, and we see who makes it out, you know? Yeah, that kinda thing. Okay, got it,
Joe
cool.
Logano only drinks Coca-Cola for 24 hours in the Walmart, and then that's all he can do.
It's a lot of
Um,
chug points, baby.
that's why I have to ask, yeah, chat, do you think we have too many road courses? Like, what is your optimal someone mentioned earlier, and I believe that was James, that doesn't believe the Roval shouldn't be the road course for the championship round. Roval track is fine, just not for the championship. Like, what road course would it be? I like Watkins Glen. I mean, I'm also biased because 'cause I'm from New York State. So Watkins Glen can stay, in the playoffs. What other road course would it be? I mean, I really don't mind the Roval that much, but if you wanted to remove the Roval, do you wanna do Sonoma? Like, do you wanna go, like, classic road course, or do we wanna do, like, a
I mean, that's the golden question too, because I think it depends on what your first choice is. I love Watkins Glen. I think I Watkins Glen is great, and you can argue Sonoma is different enough from Watkins Glen that you are getting
yeah.
a different style of road course. So it really just depends on what you pick as your first choice. But I don't know. I mean, I like those. I like that pairing, Watkins Glen, Sonoma. I don't know that I would do a Coda. Trying to think. Hmm.
Oh, CODA, interesting. Just because it's, a formulation of all the different racetracks or, like, takes characteristics from other racetracks, so technically you could argue that they're being tested, amongst different configurations of different racetracks into, like, one Frankenstein of one, so, yeah, I could see CODA. I know, I just like Sonoma because 1, love the Sonoma sheep, 2, great racetrack.
I love that you just called it the Frankenstein of racetracks. I really love that.
F1 fans angrily typing in the comments. Man, I like Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen with the boot. Oh, yes, run the boot. Touche. Thank you, swim. Agreed. I think Ben mentioned was it Ben? Did you oh, no, that one guy, on Twitch. Honestly, with the new schedule they got for 2025, it scratches the perfect balance for road courses and normal ovals. I think it was just a bit too
I agree
long
with
for
that.
NASCAR. Interesting. Taking 20 minutes to reset for each green white checkered. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's fine. Running with the boot makes a sense. Watkins Glen with the boot. I like that. Sold. We will take it up with the higher ups. It will not happen. We have zero authority.
Yeah.
But we do take your comments and let people know who have
Once
authority.
again,
I like people to know that we are talking about what is said on this chat in these chats on Twitch and YouTube with people who have more decision power than we do. Where it goes after that, I don't know. Okay. What after that? But I'd like to let you know that your comments, one that we obviously me and Jesse read, and two, we discuss after the show after we sign off because we think it's fun. And then we talk about it in our production meetings. So just FYI. Um you guys are being spoken about in I'm not gonna say important rooms, but you are being spoken about in rooms.
yeah.
We always appreciate it.
We see
Go to
you.
Road Atlanta.
Yeah.
Ooh, go to
So
Road
it
Atlanta.
will go back to the point you made earlier about thinking about what you say before you type it and put it on the internet. It could come up in our production meeting.
And me and Jesse can make fun of you. You see that one person in there? Said Watkins Glen was the worst racetrack. How dare they? Absolutely banned from chat. Get him out of here.
This also
Done.
goes for nice things. So if you ever want to say nice things about us, we'll talk about you in our production meetings as well.
Make him a chat VIP. Road Atlanta can be spicy. That was producer Rachel's idea was Road Atlanta. It'd be beautiful. I'd be interested to see Lime Rock land on the cup schedule. All right, now we're talking. Let's go. Now we're talking. Lime Rock. Where does the World Challenge go? We already do the Indie Road course. People have mixed feelings about that. Gosh, Sonoma, Sebring. Ooh, could a cup car handle the Sebring bumps? That's where would they pass? Sunset? I'm trying to think like what corner, like where are we? No, Sebring's not good for NASCAR Cup. The way I'm thinking about this, no, never mind. Ignore that I said that. It'd be cool for like a second, and then I'd be like, we're not doing multiple laps of this at all whatsoever. Um, not doing Sebring. Can we do the Daytona Road Course? Belle Isle too? Oh man, I don't know if those people would appreciate us being there who live in Belle Isle. I'm gonna be 100% honest, chat. I don't know if they would appreciate it. Cup Series Road America 4th of July weekend. Spicy. All right, Road America done. You guys, if you guys see it in 2027, it's because of me and Jess. Landmark is on the truck and ARCA schedules next year. Why not Cup? Do what we can. All right. We're gonna move on from this conversation because I can talk about this all day. Um, okay, we do have that. Another piece of news, which I'd like to say, me and Jess talked about this 2 weeks ago, and multiple times. Well, really one time before then. But the crew chief changed for the number 16 immediately, and then Darian Grubb will serve as a crew chief this weekend for SVG. We said this on our show after Kansas. We knew this was coming because if your driver with less than a year experience is telling you that you need to put in less air pressure in the tires instead of more to handle the car, that is an issue. And then two, if you then make fun of your driver on another channel for being mad at you about your decision, it's also not a good look. So, also made that
That
call
is
to say,
very fair. I think that's a very fair thing to say. Yeah. It is interesting because I think that it makes me wonder a little bit too about what the future of college racing looks like and them bringing in Ty Norris and making some of these decisions. It's like, okay, we are making some moves here and it, I'm treading lightly. I think it will be a successful move for SVG to continue to grow and learn.
Grubb and SVG won Chicago in 23. Also, Grubb is just a season crew chief, so I mean, I'm just expecting some dubs or some higher up finishes for this mix with a new crew chief and such. This is not surprising. For 2025, they already announced, Steven Doran will be the crew chief for SVG next year in the 88, and who's currently the crew chief for Zane Smith at 71 at Spire. So for 2025, it's been announced, but for the remaining of this year, it's Darren Grubb, who SVG has worked with before and can get those finishes that he needs. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. Yes, we're still yapping, Ray, but we have to talk about Vegas, and wrap up the show. So we can all move on with our days. Vegas, baby! Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I do have my predictions, but I think, Jess, I let you go first last time, so now I'm gonna take the first um, um, I'm going
Okay.
uh, I'll go I like a Byron Larson situation for Vegas.
You gotta pick. You gotta
I gotta
pick.
pick one?
Pick one. Pick one.
I'll do Byron. Larson just seems too easy to pick.
Cool, because my pick was Larson. Oh, great. Thanks. Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, just because he won
You know
last
what?
time.
That's fair. Larson does seem like an easy pick, but what do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do? Um, so the reason I picked Byron is because of his finish last year, but as well as his best average finish, which is just above Chastain. Chastain has the best average finish and this in the car, modern day NASCAR, etc. However, you want to do the asterisks of the analysis here. Chastain has an average finish of 5.2, and then it's Byron at 7.2 for Vegas. So with a combination of Byron having the best average finish and doing decently well last year and being a top high pick, I'm doing Byron. Love consistency. God, my big thing is consistency. But yeah, Larson's not a bad pick. One, his average finish is an 8.2. I did tell someone yesterday that yeah, love Larson. Obviously, tremendous racer. He does take big risk, and that's why we hear about him a lot. Takes calculated risk, sometimes bad at math. So sometimes his risks do not pay off, and ends up back in the pits. But a tremendous racer when it does pay off, and obviously could easily win Vegas again and again and again and again and again.
Mhm. Yeah, won this race, won there in the spring, won this race last fall, won as Parrot Trek, sorry, mentioned in the Twitch chat here. He swept the stages in the spring at Vegas, coming off of a win this past weekend. I think consistency and momentum and adrenaline is huge. I like my pick. I like your pick too, though, Ash. I do. I do.
You're just being nice. Rachel says Logano for Vegas, which I thought was interesting. I asked her why, and Rachel, if you want to say why, or if you just want to type why. Oh, because he always wins there, especially when it's Pennzoil. It's just another Logano even year conspiracy theory for Joey here. No, I'm not. No, no, I'm not
I
doing. I'm
like
not
it.
putting it in there. No, I don't like it. I no.
Ray says it though. Rachel has the script, so we should be listening to Rachel.
Oh, that's true. We should be listening. Yeah, I guess
Hmm.
Logano and Blaney are good front runners too. You can do Bell wouldn't be bad. His average finish isn't the best, but usually he was up there last time with Larson. So in the order of a good finish was Larson, Bell, Reddick, Byron, Blaney, Hamlin, and Elliott. Someone says, could we see an Elliott win this time? And mm,
We could
could,
always potentially see an Elliott win.
I
Uh
I just
if
don't.
I were to take an educated guess, I would not put much money there. Also, do not take gambling advice from me. So,
No, I don't see an Elliott winning here in Vegas. I
yeah, I don't
I
either.
yeah, maybe a top 5. I wanna believe. I know that one guy. I know the crew. Look, if he lets me ride in his hauler again, then yes. Otherwise, then just kidding. Yeah, I don't see him. He's just lacking that oomph on the track. You will notice that he does play it extremely safe on the racetrack. When there's 2 people battling out in front of him, some will argue that he's just waiting for them to get into a tango and then capitalize off that moment. Um, I think he just waits too long and doesn't take the doesn't have the pizzazz that you need to get that win. That's why, like, people enjoy Larson, right? Again, this calculated risk, when he does calculated well, he makes those moves and he gets it done. Uh, I think Elliott's still playing it too safe for the round. Maybe he'll change it for the round of 8, knowing he has to get into the final 4. He's been playing it really, really safe in the playoffs, and I think this is about, now you gotta make your move here. We're in the round of 8. There's no more, you can't be, oh my god, I'm trying not to curse and say inappropriate language here. You can't be ducking around. Just change out that word real quick.
I like that. I also, fork is a good word that I like to use, every once in a while,
Ooh,
so, like, no time for
so
forking around this weekend.
yeah.
But no, I definitely agree with you there. I think you hit it on the head when you talked about, like, the energy that comes with the round of 8. That cannot be underestimated how big that'll be. I think we'll really see some guys kick it up a notch here for the round of 8. You have to play the game of cautiously aggressive for so many weeks, but they know that now it's like you said, the risk versus reward for somebody like Larson. You can't play this cautiously aggressive game. The aggressiveness has got to start to take over, or you're going to miss your opportunity to get to Phoenix.
I mean, technically, I mean, it's funny, I was just making fun of Elliott for not taking, Parrots has a good point. Elliott is consistently in around the top 10, yes, but doesn't push the envelope to get the win. It's gotten him this far, but now in that round of 8, it will not get him this far. Oh, excuse me. It will not get him to where he needs to be in the final 4, and then he won't win the championship if he's just not pushing the envelope in Phoenix and just like, "Oh, yeah, maybe I'll get up there," and everyone else will crash out at the end there. Um, that's a good point. Who's really good at those game, quote unquote, game 7 moments slash being aggressive? I think when Blaney locks in, he locks in. Bell can be a little bit inconsistent. Um,
Blaney.
ooh, Reddick's hit or miss. Blaney's really good at that kind of stuff. Blaney's really good. I'm not putting
Reddick is hit or miss. So here's what's tough about Reddick. I would argue back maybe
Reddick's an
even in
emo boy.
Xfinity that I can remember Reddick being somebody that like really when was put in those pressure moments, like you could expect him to go out there and perform. And on top of that, expect him to really push. It's you're saying push that aggressiveness and do so successfully. But they've been struggling, I think, here in the last couple weeks, which is just so it's been such a weird season for them to see them come off of winning the regular season championship and then the way they've performed in the playoffs. So I don't know that I would consider at this point Reddick one of those guys that's a game 7 performer, you know? Blaney, though, to your point, first person that comes to mind for me. No doubt about that.
Swim and Climb says, I think it'd be nice for Hamlin to win the championship. He has been so close for such a long time. And there's been it, his story is interesting. I remember talking about this last year, and I have the list. The ways he's some so close and how has he lost it? 2010, Homestead, spun while leading the points. 2014, stayed out too late, got passed by Harvick. 2019 had a small shot, but then a huge piece of um tape on the car overheated. And that was a joke. This massive beach towel on the car overheated it. 2020 and 2021, worst driver of the final 4. Everyone led laps in each year but him and was never really in contention. 2021 would have won if the caution came out. 2022, Hail Melon. But also I think Denny would have, something to denote is the would have missed the final 4 even if the Hail Melon didn't happen because of Keselowski's disqualification. And 2023 was a mechanical failure at Miami where he finished 30th, didn't qualify for the final 4. He won at Bristol, runner-up effort at Kansas, finished 5th in the championship, 3rd time in his career, 2nd consecutive season. And then 2024, I like to say he got in his own way for that race. So yeah, this seems to be this is why he on the media day to stop asking him if this is his year because he's been through every probably situation imaginable from mechanical failures to getting in his own way to being passed by someone to someone else doing really well in disqualifications and such like that. At some point, just just the fates that be have tested him in every single way. And he probably has thought about all these potential outcomes that could happen similarly to all his years running for the championship. And I think he is prepared. But whether will finally pay off is the next question.
I think too, it just is so well, I'll start with this. I can remember listening to Denny talk in the media center, I believe it was last year, and people were asking the same thing, "Is this your year? Things are looking good," and he talked a little bit about how for a long time, the priority that he put on winning a championship in regards to how he reflected on his career, um, shifted for him a little bit, like, for so long, it was like, "I've gotta win this championship to prove to myself, to prove to everybody that I've had the career that I've had," and the reality is, I think in the past couple of years, he's been able to shift that mindset a little bit and recognize for a lot of different reasons, I won't even get into all of it, but recognize that, he's satisfied with what he's been able to do in this industry, in his career, in his time, understanding that he hasn't won a championship, and he's okay with that. And so I have to wonder if a little bit of that mental pressure and some of that just shift in mentality will work so much in his favor. And as we've seen it, the last I said this was last year, so I guess the last 2 years and just the way he's kind of finished out the season and gone into this one. I will say too, and I know I saw people in the chat saying like, the world will end when Denny wins championship, and there's a lot of discussion about who whether you like Denny or not, but you can't argue that Denny has been a really large what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost the word, but like some I'm trying to choose my words very carefully as well, but, like,
Character?
spokesperson
Influence?
or getting somebody who's really helped get character, personality, in helping kind of put NASCAR out to a lot of different people, and on top of that, giving people a little more insight into the ins and outs of racing. We've really seen Denny step up his game in the last couple years and trying to be, bringing, oh gosh, I'm just gonna stop. I was gonna say advocate was the word I was looking for, but that's not quite the word that is there. But I think you know what I'm trying to say. A spokesperson, he's done a good job of putting himself out there, and I think to add a championship to that, there's a lot of people that would continue to look towards the sport because of what Denny's been able to kind of do here in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I got Byron for Vegas. I'm trying to think who has that mentality for championship. I would like Elliott to win the championship, but if we're thinking about that kind of, gosh, who can really lock in there and crave it? For me, it's Blaney, and not just because I have his merch hanging behind me and the purple flag, but has been one of the few to do so.
I also think Bell. I think don't count out Bell. He's always been the past couple weeks or the past couple years the kind of like overlooked, underestimated, I think, and he is knows what he can do to get it done. So I think he's able to like turn it up a little bit too.
It's just like his inconsistency for me that I can't like really be 100% like Bell. I think he's good when I mean, you can say that about every driver. They're good when they're good. That's such a stereotypical thing to say. But if he was consistently good where he's good, kind of like an Elliott's consistent,
That's
Elliott's
fair.
just got to just get that oomph to get up instead of the top tens, get that top threes from time to time and stuff, and make those moves and outplay it safe. I guess I'll watch out for Bell for Vegas. But yeah, I have Byron. Jess says she has Larson for Vegas. So chat, let us know who you're rooting for to win the Cup Series at Vegas. And it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be your playoff contenders, it can be anyone you want it to be. Ross Chastain might also be a good pick. Um, a YouTuber already saying
Mhm.
Tyler the Ridiculous, which I appreciate. Vegas, again, traditionally does not produce high tire wear. However, Goodyear has designed its tread compounds to wear a little bit more, dissipate that heat that's in the tire. Something to look out for is the grip, or maintaining as much grip as possible in those tires for Vegas. So that's something to look into, as well as Goodyear recommending they reduce their air pressure in their tires to make sure they have the best grip available, but they do give minimums posted so tires don't over deflect and cause damage to the sidewall. So which team will figure it out the best? We will see this Sunday. We do have the NASCAR Classics watch along tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I lost my notes for that. I believe it's a 2011 Las Vegas race, which will be here at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you need a little bit of background racing to watch, again, NASCAR Classics will be played on this Twitch channel, not on YouTube. I'm so sorry, on the NASCAR Twitch, 2011 Vegas. Otherwise, tune in on Saturday at the CW for the Xfinity race, as well as Sunday for the Cup race. I believe Xfinity is at 7 p.m. and the Cup is at 2:30. Um, So, chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Myself and Jess will be watching Vegas, and then we'll talk about it, all of us, next Wednesday. Be here, be squared, because you're not around. Thank you, Jess, for your time, and thank you, chat, for